They say a man's silence, no calls, no texts, means a lack of interest. But let's be honest, the silence of a man is way more complicated than it seems. If you don't truly understand what it means, you might misinterpret everything. After years of helping women wondering why he isn't calling, why he doesn't reply, or why he vanishes without a word, it became clear. It's not about failing to read the signs. The real problem? Women are taught from childhood to misread a man's silence. They're told that if a man isn't constantly reaching out, he's not interested. That love means constant communication. They believe that if a man loved you, he would text every day. All these misconceptions make every silence feel like rejection, every pause like disinterest, and every moment without a message, a red flag. Let's untangle this web of beliefs, once and for all. Because a man's silence isn't random, it's not some mysterious enigma. It's a clear sign of what's happening inside him. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly what to do when he doesn't reach out. All without losing your cool, your inner peace, or your personal power. Before you say, "I already know all this," let me ask you something. Imagine he hasn't texted for 2 days. Has your energy stayed the same? Did you check your phone obsessively? Did you start inventing stories in your head about what could be happening? If your answer is no, you need to read on. Stoicism can help you understand his distance without losing your own strength. Here's what no one tells you about this ancient philosophy. It's not about becoming cold or emotionless. It's about keeping your center while the world spins around you. This might sound harsh, but you need to hear it. Sometimes, silence is a tactic, subconscious maybe, to see how you react when he pulls away. Not all men do this with bad intentions, but they do it. And what's painful to admit? It often works. Has it ever happened that when he doesn't contact you for days, you start sending casual messages like, "Hey, what's up? Is everything okay? I haven't heard from you?" You ask if he's all right. You explain why you haven't heard from him. You start justifying why you haven't texted. If the answer is yes, he's seeing exactly what he wanted to see. You're emotionally dependent on his attention. And here's the heartbreaker. Incredible, smart women, successful in their careers, completely lose their power when it comes to interpreting a man's silence. Women who run companies, who raise kids alone, who've overcome huge obstacles, become insecure versions of themselves when he doesn't reply. Some men, intentionally or not, create distance to see if you'll chase them, and if your world will crumble in his absence. If you need him around to feel okay, it's like an unconscious experiment, where your reaction tells them everything they need to know about the power they hold over you. Here's what no one will tell you. Every time you react desperately to his silence, every time his absence changes your energy, you're giving him power he doesn't deserve. You're teaching him he can control you without even being there. But here's the key. Stoicism teaches you that your value isn't about who seeks you out, but how you maintain balance when they don't. A woman who stays focused when he doesn't call, who goes on with her life, who doesn't let his absence change her energy. That's a woman who truly has power. You know what happens when a woman doesn't react to silence? When he comes back, and sooner or later he will, he finds someone who wasn't waiting. He finds a woman who continued to live, work, create, and connect. And believe me, he feels that difference immediately. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been there? Have you ever felt like you had to prove you didn't need him, precisely when you needed him most? Because that inner contradiction is where we lose our power. Now comes a truth that might sting, but will set you completely free. Sometimes, his silence isn't a punishment or a manipulation. It's not about you at all. He's simply focused on his goals, his tasks, or even just trying to get away from problems. He's prioritizing himself, and often, that's exactly what he should be doing. Men have this ability to compartmentalize that we often struggle to understand. They can be completely focused on a work project, a family issue, or a personal goal. And during that time, the relationship takes a back seat, not because he doesn't care, but because that's how he processes things. It can be frustrating, especially when you make time for him, when you think of him, when you include him in your day, when you make the effort to connect, to ask how he is, to nurture the connection, and he seems completely disconnected. But here's the revelation that changes everything. His silence is a perfect invitation for you to return to yourself. The universe is telling you, while he's in his world, build yours. When was the last time you spent days without thinking about whether he texted, When was the last time you were so focused on your own projects that you forgot to check for his message? When was the last time you woke up excited about something you were going to do, instead of waiting for something from him? These questions are uncomfortable because they reveal how much of our emotional well-being we've placed in someone else's hands. How much of our daily happiness depends on the attention we receive, instead of the attention we give ourselves. You weren't born to revolve around someone. You are your own universe, with your own goals, dreams, and priorities. You have a life to build, goals to achieve, people to love, experiences to live. While he's in his world, build yours. While he's silent, find your voice. While he's distant, get closer to yourself. And here's what happens when you truly do that. When you really focus on your own life, when he returns, and eventually he will, he won't find a woman who's been waiting for him. He'll find a busy, focused woman with stories to tell, projects to show, an interesting life to share. He'll find a woman who didn't need him to be happy, who didn't get stuck waiting for his attention, who didn't put her life on pause because he wasn't around. And believe me, he'll feel that difference immediately, because there's a completely different energy about a woman who is happy on her own than one who needs external validation to feel good. We've reached the point we all want to avoid, but need to face bravely. Yes, sometimes his silence is a lack of interest. It's hard, but it's true. And the faster you accept it, the faster you stop fighting that reality, the faster you'll free yourself from illusions that only drain your energy. Here's what I've realized after years of watching women cling to men who clearly aren't making an effort. Attachment is the real enemy, not loss. Attachment to an idea, to potential, to what could be, not to what is. When you cling to someone who doesn't want to stay, when you insist on a connection the other person isn't nurturing, when you keep investing emotional energy in someone who gives nothing back, you're fighting against reality, not for love. You know the difference between a woman who suffers for years over a man who doesn't value her and a woman who moves on quickly. The second one understands. If he walks away, something better is ahead. She doesn't waste time trying to convince someone to love her. She doesn't exhaust herself trying to prove her worth to someone who doesn't see it. A woman who moves on quickly understands that true love doesn't require convincing, chasing, or losing yourself to keep the other person interested. And let me say something that might seem controversial, but it's a truth you need to hear. A man who loses interest for no good reason, who disappears without explanation, who doesn't have the decency to communicate his feelings, is doing you a huge favor. He's showing you who he really is. Before song, you invest more time, more energy, more hope. He's revealing his ability to communicate, his emotional maturity, his respect for you as a person. And if all that is lacking, do you really want to build something serious with that man? The universe has a strange way of protecting you. Sometimes, protection comes in the form of silence. Sometimes, the best answer you can get is no answer at all, because that lack of response tells you everything you need to know. And here's what happens when you shift your perspective. Instead of seeing disinterest as a personal failure, you start to see it as valuable information. Instead of asking yourself, what did I do wrong? You start asking, what does this tell me about him? But there's also a reality we can't ignore. Many men haven't been taught to express their emotions effectively. Their silence might be their way of dealing with stress, confusion, or even their own emotional immaturity. Society raises men with the idea that showing vulnerability is weakness, that talking about feelings is a woman's thing, and that they should solve all their problems alone. So when something overwhelms them emotionally, their automatic reaction is to withdraw, to process in silence, to temporarily disconnect. Have you noticed how many men become withdrawn when something is bothering them? It doesn't necessarily mean they don't want to talk to you. It means they don't know how to process what they're feeling while also maintaining an emotional conversation. Their silence is their emotional survival mechanism. He might be facing pressure at work, family issues, personal insecurities, anxiety, depression, and his instinctual way to cope is to create space. Not because he doesn't care about you, but because he doesn't know how to handle multiple emotional pressures at once. Here's what Stoicism teaches. Don't carry what isn't yours. His internal conflicts, his inability to communicate, his way of dealing with stress, those aren't your responsibility. You don't need to interpret everything as personal rejection. Sometimes, his silence speaks more about his inner world than about your personal value. A man might be experiencing an anxiety crisis and not know how to explain it. He might be battling depression and not want to infect you with his low energy. He might be facing financial problems and feel he can't be the man he wants to be for you until he resolves them. But here's the key. Understanding that doesn't mean you have to tolerate it indefinitely. Understanding doesn't mean blind acceptance. Empathy doesn't mean sacrificing your own emotional needs. Here's what is your responsibility: to decide if you want to be with someone who deals with his emotions that way, to decide if you can accept these periods of silence as part of who he is, or if you need someone with better emotional communication. Because understanding doesn't mean endless tolerance. You can understand why someone acts a certain way and still decide that way is incompatible with what you need in a relationship. Now we move to the deepest, most transformative point. Instead of seeing his silence as an insult or a sign you should do more, ask yourself, isn't this the perfect moment to return to myself, to grow, to focus on my path, my projects, my essence? That perspective changes everything. His silence as an opportunity, his absence as an invitation, his distance as space for your growth. What if, instead of asking yourself, why isn't he reaching out, you asked, what can I create while he's not here? What if, instead of waiting for his message, you focused on sending yourself messages of love? What if you used this time of silence to reconnect with friends you've neglected, to resume that course you left unfinished, to start that project you've always put off, to get back to the gym, to read those books, to explore the hobbies you've abandoned? True power isn't about controlling the actions of others, but about controlling your reaction to them. While he's silent, you can become stronger, more whole, more interesting. While he's absent, you can become more present in your own life. I've seen women who used a man's silence as a catalyst to completely transform their lives. Women who started businesses, who resumed their studies, who reconnected with friends, who rediscovered passions they'd abandoned while focusing too much on the relationship. I remember one woman who wrote to me, saying that when her partner became emotionally distant for several months, she decided to use that time to finish her master's degree. When he came back, wanting to reconnect, she wasn't the same woman he'd left. She was someone with more confidence, clearer goals, a greater sense of purpose. And here's what happens when a woman transforms in his absence. When he returns and finds someone stronger, more focused, more complete, the dynamic completely changes. You're no longer a woman who waits. You're a woman who chooses. Because here's a truth few understand. Men are attracted to women who have a rich life beyond them. Not women who need them to be complete, but women who want them, but don't desperately need them. That's perhaps the most important point. Silence eliminates distractions, leaving you alone with yourself. And that's when the essential question arises that determines everything. Who are you when he doesn't reply? That question is brutal, but necessary, because it reveals exactly where your power lies and where you've lost it. Do you get lost when he doesn't reply? Do you become empty? Start doubting everything about yourself? Do you become anxious, insecure, needy? Or do you meet a strong, focused, self-sufficient woman? The answer to that question determines everything. It determines how men see you. It determines the type of relationships you attract. It determines whether you have real power or borrowed power. It's the difference between a woman who lives dependent on male attention and a woman who lives from her own center. The first crumbles in silence. The second blossoms in solitude. The first needs external support to know her worth. The second knows her worth regardless of who acknowledges it. And here's what I've observed after years of working with women in similar situations. The women who handle a man's silence best are those who have learned to be at peace with themselves. They don't need constant attention. They don't need messages to know their worth. They don't need his presence to feel complete. Those women possess something others lack, a solid relationship with themselves. They know themselves, respect themselves, prioritize themselves. They have their own goals, their own interests, their own life. And when a man enters that life, he's an addition, not a salvation. And here's what happens with these women. They rarely experience prolonged silence because men sense their energy differently. They sense they don't desperately need attention, that they won't crumble if they aren't sought out, that they have a rich and full life beyond the relationship. Men sense when a woman has options, when she isn't clinging, when she can be okay without them, and that energy is magnetic, not from neediness, but from fullness. The true battlefield of Stoicism isn't conquering others, but conquering yourself. And when you do that, when you become your own source of validation, peace, and happiness, the silence of others ceases to be a threat and becomes an opportunity. But let's be honest, reaching that point isn't easy. It requires inner work. It requires confronting your insecurities, your fears, your patterns of emotional dependency. It requires building an authentic relationship with yourself. Many women ask, but how do I make it so I don't care when he doesn't reach out? And I always answer the same thing. It's not about not caring. It's about valuing your own peace of mind more than his attention. It's about building such an interesting, such a rich, such a purposeful life that his silence can't empty it. It's about having so many sources of joy, fulfillment, and connection that the absence of one doesn't destroy you. And here's what I really want to tell you. When a woman achieves that, when she truly builds that inner strength, she not only changes her relationships with men, she changes her relationships with everything, with work, with friends, with family, with herself, because the same strength that allows you to maintain your center when he isn't reaching out is the same strength that allows you to negotiate better at work, to set healthy boundaries with family, to choose friendships that truly nurture you. Now that you know the 6 real reasons for a man's silence, we've reached the question that truly matters. What do you do with this information? How do you apply it in your real life? Because understanding is only the first step. Knowledge without application is just entertainment. True transformation happens when you change how you react, when you integrate these principles into your daily life. Here's what we want you to do the next time he doesn't reach out. We want you to pause before grabbing your phone, before sending that casual message, before creating stories in your head. We want you to take a deep breath and ask yourself, what do I need right now? Not what do you need from him, but what do you need? Do you need peace? Do you need to exercise? Do you need to call a friend? Do you need to work on that project? Do you need time for yourself? And then we want you to do it. We want you to give yourself what you need, instead of waiting for him to give it to you. Because here's the magic. When you start being your own source of care, attention, and validation, when you start treating yourself the way you deserve, you automatically attract people who treat you the same way. His silence isn't an order to seek him out. It's an opportunity to reclaim yourself. Every time he doesn't reach out and you stay focused, every time he doesn't reply and you continue to live your life, every time he disappears and you don't disappear from your own existence, you're building something no one can take away from you, your personal power. And here's what we want you to deeply understand. This power isn't just to attract men better. It's power to live better, to sleep peacefully, to wake up excited about your day, to make decisions based on clarity, not fear. Because look, it's one thing to intellectually understand that you shouldn't chase a man who isn't chasing you. It's another thing to feel that truth to the depths of your soul, to feel that you truly deserve someone who makes an effort for you, who communicates with you, who doesn't leave you guessing about his intentions. And here's what we've noticed in all the women who achieve this transformation. They stop justifying behaviors they used to tolerate. They stop making excuses for men who don't prioritize them. They stop settling for crumbs of attention when they deserve a whole feast. You know what's most liberating about all this? When you stop chasing someone who isn't seeking you out, you automatically create space for someone who will. When you stop investing energy in one-sided relationships, that energy stays with you, and you use it to create something better. We've seen women who, after applying these principles, wrote to us saying, "I can't believe I used to tolerate so much silence. I can't believe I used to desperately seek answers from someone who clearly wasn't interested. I can't believe my self-esteem used to depend so much on male attention." And that's true transformation. You don't just change your reaction to silence. You change what you're willing to accept. You change your standards. You change your relationship with yourself. Because here's a truth you need to imprint on your heart. A woman who stands firm, without begging, without giving in, without losing herself, is a woman no man will forget. Not because she's hard to get, but because she's impossible to replace. You know why she's impossible to replace? Because she isn't acting out a script she learned to attract men. She's authentically herself. She lives from her truth, from her strength, from her center. That authenticity can't be faked, can't be copied, can't be replaced, because it comes from years of inner work, self-knowledge, learning to value yourself independently of external validation. When a woman knows her worth, when she doesn't desperately seek attention, when she can be okay alone, she radiates an energy that attracts naturally, not from manipulation, but from authenticity, not from neediness, but from fullness. And men feel that energy unmistakably, immediately. It's the difference between a woman who is with you because she needs you and a woman who is with you because she chooses you. The first is dependency, the second is love. A man's silence can be a test, a distraction, an internal conflict, or simply a lack of interest. But your reaction to that silence determines who you are. It determines whether you emerge from that experience stronger or weaker. And here's what we've seen again and again. The women who use difficulties as opportunities for growth, who see obstacles as training, who transform pain into strength, these women become unstoppable, not just in love, but in everything. Because the skills you develop to maintain your center during a man's silence are the same skills you need for success in any area of life. The ability to not take things personally, to maintain your self-esteem independently of the actions of others, to stay focused on your goals despite external distractions. All of these are skills of leadership, success, fullness. So the next time he doesn't reach out, instead of asking yourself what you did wrong, ask yourself what you can do right. Instead of waiting for him, find yourself. Instead of chasing him, build such an interesting life that he wants to be part of it. Not from need, but from admiration. Instead of asking yourself why he isn't texting you, ask yourself what you can create today. Instead of obsessively checking your phone, obsessively check your list of goals. Instead of analyzing his last words, analyze your next steps. Because in the end, it's not about deciphering a man's silence. It's about building such a solid, such a rich, such a full inner world that the silence of others can't touch it. It's about creating such a life, full of meaning, passion, and joy, that the absence of any one person can't empty it. It's about being so whole on your own that anyone who enters your life is a gift, not a necessity. And that doesn't mean becoming cold or closed off to love. Quite the opposite. It means loving from abundance, not lack. It means offering the best of yourself because you have something to give, not because you need something in return. When you reach that point, when you truly live it, you'll realize that the power was always within you. You just needed to remember it. You just needed to claim your right to it. You just needed to decide that you deserve to be loved in the right way by someone who chooses to stay, not someone you need to convince. Because here's a truth you need to imprint on your heart. A woman who stands firm, without begging, without giving in, without losing herself, is a woman no man will forget. Not because she's hard to get, but because she's impossible to replace. You know why she's impossible to replace? Because she isn't acting out a script she learned to attract men. She's authentically herself. She lives from her truth, from her strength, from her center. When a woman knows her worth, when she doesn't desperately seek attention, when she can be okay alone, she radiates an energy that attracts naturally, not from manipulation, but from authenticity, not from neediness, but from fullness. And men feel that energy unmistakably, immediately. It's the difference between a woman who is with you because she needs you and a woman who is with you because she chooses you. The first is dependency, the second is love. A man's silence can be a test, a distraction, an internal conflict, or simply a lack of interest. But your reaction to that silence determines who you are. It determines whether you emerge from that experience stronger or weaker. And here's what we've seen again and again. The women who use difficulties as opportunities for growth, who see obstacles as training, who transform pain into strength, these women become unstoppable, not just in love, but in everything. Because the skills you develop to maintain your center during a man's silence are the same skills you need for success in any area of life. So the next time he doesn't reach out, instead of asking yourself what you did wrong, ask yourself what you can do right. Instead of waiting for him, find yourself. Instead of chasing him, build such an interesting life that he wants to be part of it, not from need, but from admiration. Instead of asking yourself why he isn't texting you, ask yourself what you can create today. Instead of obsessively checking your phone, obsessively check your list of goals. Instead of analyzing his last words, analyze your next steps. Because in the end, it's not about deciphering a man's silence. It's about building such a solid, such a rich, such a full inner world that the silence of others can't touch it. It's about creating such a life, full of meaning, passion, and joy, that the absence of any one person can't empty it. It's about being so whole on your own that anyone who enters your life is a gift, not a necessity. And when you reach that point, when you truly live it, you'll realize that the power was always within you. You just needed to remember it. You just needed to claim your right to it. You just needed to decide that you deserve to be loved in the right way, by someone who chooses to stay, not someone you need to convince. We'd love to know which of these points resonated most with you. Have you experienced similar situations? Did you recognize yourself in any of these dynamics? Share your experiences in the comments, because your story can help other women who are going through the same thing. Don't be afraid to be honest. We've all been there. We've all lost our power at some point. The difference is deciding to reclaim it. If this video helped you see a man's silence from a different perspective, if it gave you practical tools to maintain your personal power, like it, and share it with those who need to hear it, because together we are stronger. And if you want more content about how to maintain your personal power in relationships, about how to build that inner strength that no one can break, subscribe to our channel and activate the bell. Here we'll continue to explore these truly important topics. Remember, you came into this world not to be someone's choice. You came to be your own priority. You came not to beg for love. You came to radiate so much self-love that you naturally attract someone who knows how to value you. Your power isn't in the hands of who seeks you out or doesn't. Your power is in your hands. Use it wisely.